Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Todd Chrisley reveals why he rejected prison chores and won. Since their presidential pardon, Todd and Julie Chrisley have been quite open about their time in prison. In a recent share, Todd recently opened up about prison chores. As he revealed, he and Julie had quite different experiences while behind bars. A star from Bravo's Real Housewives franchise was also there for the conversation. Todd, Julie, and the Chrisley family became known to audiences through the USA Network series, Chrisley Knows Best. In 2022, Todd and Julie were convicted of a variety of charges, including bank fraud and tax evasion. Todd was initially sentenced to 12 years in Pensacola's federal prison camp. Julie was sentenced to 7 years in Lexington's Federal Medical Center. However, the two would see an early release in 2025 thanks a presidential pardon from President Donald Trump. Since then, Todd and Julie have opened up about their time in prison with various outlets, including their own podcast series. However, the two often share that they've had different experiences behind bars. This recently became a topic of discussion with friend and guest Kandi Burruss of the Real Housewives of Atlanta fame. At one point, Burruss admitted, "I just can't see you in jail," while speaking to Todd. He shared, "I ran my block." Julie then shared, "I did hard time. I adhered to the rules. Keep in mind, I was in a place where there was no air conditioning." For his part, Todd made it clear that he went there to do time, not chores. Julie noted, "I did work, he didn't." When asked why, Todd simply shared, "I refused." However, working did come with some perks for Julie. As she shared, she could get some homey comforts while working in the commissary. She noted, "I wanted to make sure I could order my shampoo and body wash and makeup. I mean, it wasn't MAC, but we could get the CoverGirl, the Maybelline, the Wet n Wild. You would walk down the hall, and somebody would have on fake lashes, fake hair, there was more weave in there." In a previous podcast episode, Todd also shared that he enjoyed all sorts of food while in prison. He previously shared, "I had Chick-fil-A, I had Burger King, I had pizza, I had Culver's," which let me just go ahead and tell you, this is not an ad, but Culver's is my jam now. "I had Olive Garden once, but I didn't like it." Of course, that's not to say Todd didn't have any job while behind bars. As previously reported, Todd was said to have worked as an assistant to a prison chaplain. However, he was removed from the position back in October, prior to his presidential pardon. At the time, attorney Jay Sargent shared that Todd was upset over losing the position, with claims that he lost the job without proper cause. What did you think about Todd Chrisley's recent admission? Have you been following the Chrisley Confessions 2.0 podcast? Make sure you come back to for all the latest TV and celebrity news. Todd Chrisley has always been a man who prides himself on appearances, confidence, and a strong sense of personal boundaries. That didn't change when he traded his designer suits for tacky prison-issued clothing. What shocked many, however, was how the former Chrisley Knows Best star turned a controversial decision, refusing to perform prison chores, into a statement of defiance, and ultimately, a victory that surprised both guards and fellow inmates alike. The battle over prison chores. When Todd first entered prison, he was assigned duties like every other inmate. Some were menial tasks, mopping floors, cleaning bathrooms, scrubbing trays in the dining hall. For many, these jobs were routine, a way to pass time and earn favor with guards. For Todd, however, the assignments clashed with his principles. "I wasn't being difficult for the sake of being difficult," Todd revealed in a recent letter circulated through his family. "But I wasn't going to allow the system to strip away the last shred of my dignity. They could take my freedom temporarily, but they weren't going to define my worth by forcing me into work that dehumanized me. To him, scrubbing floors wasn't simply a chore. It symbolized submission to a narrative he refused to embrace. He had already been vocal about prison conditions, claiming the environment was riddled with abuse, mold, and mistreatment. Agreeing to chores, he argued, would make him complicit in a system he felt was unjust. The pushback. Prison officials didn't take kindly to Todd's rejection. Refusing assigned work typically comes with consequences: loss of privileges, solitary confinement, or disciplinary reports that affect parole. Fellow inmates warned him to just do the time and play by the rules. But Todd, never one to back down from confrontation, stood firm. "I told them, I'm not here to be your janitor. I'm here because of a situation that doesn't define who I am. If you want to punish me for defending my own humanity, then so be it." For weeks, the standoff escalated. Guards threatened to write him up. He was denied certain comforts, like extra recreation time. Rumors spread that Todd would eventually crack under the pressure. Yet to everyone's surprise, he remained calm, treating the ordeal almost like a chess game. "Prison teaches you patience," he said. "It also teaches you how to stand in your truth without letting fear dictate your choices." The turning point. The unexpected twist came when Todd began documenting everything, every conversation with guards, every threat, every denial of his requests. He knew the power of narrative, and he leaned into it. His family, particularly daughter Savannah, became vocal outside the prison walls, speaking to media outlets about his refusal to comply with chores that violated his conscience. The growing attention made prison officials uneasy. No one wanted to be painted as abusive wardens in the court of public opinion, especially when the Chrisley name carried a fan base that eagerly consumed updates. Instead of crushing his defiance, the system found itself under a magnifying glass. Finally, Todd was offered what many inmates saw as an extraordinary compromise. He could forego standard chores in exchange for participation in educational programs and counseling sessions, areas where he thrived. It wasn't about winning special treatment, he explained. It was about proving that prison should rehabilitate, not degrade. Why Todd believes he won. In his mind, Todd won not because he avoided scrubbing toilets, but because he shifted the power dynamic. "The victory wasn't about me escaping a mop bucket," he said with characteristic sass. "The victory was showing that even inside these walls, I still have a voice, and they can't silence me." Other inmates reportedly began seeing Todd differently after his standoff. Initially dismissed as a pampered celebrity who wouldn't last long, he earned a new kind of respect. "They started calling me the man who beat the chores," he joked. But underneath the jokes, there was an understanding. I had stood up for something, and in prison, that matters. Todd insists his stance wasn't selfish, but symbolic. "I wasn't saying cleaning is beneath me. I was saying dignity is not negotiable. If prison is supposed to help us grow, then forcing us into degrading tasks isn't growth. It's control." A lesson in resilience. Todd's refusal and ultimate victory serve as a reminder of his core personality: unyielding, dramatic, and unafraid to push against systems he deems unjust. His fans outside prison have rallied around the story, framing it as another example of the Chrisley resilience that made the family household names on reality TV. Supporters argue that Todd's stance could spark broader conversations about prison labor practices. Many don't realize that inmates often work long hours for pennies, maintaining the facilities while corporations profit from the arrangement.